Hail and well met, people. Yep, I'm back. This time around, we're going to see what Hot Topic might look like if it were a person. So I'm going to start off really small and just get my kind of pose. And I don't know why. Every time I think of like Hot Topic, I think of this kind of girl shopping there. Even though like years ago I used to go shop there. Mainly because it was known for music and t-shirts. And that's it. But now there's a whole bunch of other stuff that they're adding. So I'm going to try and like pile that into this drawing. So yeah, kind of a cutesy pose, kind of that impossible. If I tried this, I'd break my ankle pose. She is going to be standing holding something in her hand, her left hand. Some of you weebs out there might recognize the shape of this little guy as My Neighbor Totoro, because that's an awesome film. I mean, that's a lot of fun. So, you know, I don't actually know if they have a Totoro backpack, but if they do, I'm pretty awesome. And if they don't, I should totally, like, make one. And no, it's just worthless. I draw things. I don't make backpacks. So yeah, I'm going to give her, like, these little Neko ears. Is that how you say it? Like, I'm a cute cat ears. Less furry, more cat-like and cute. Putting headphones around her neck because originally they were kind of known for kind of subculture music, and this is like my best way of depicting that right now. I didn't really want to put it on her head because it interfered with the ears, so she's got a problem there conceptually. Yeah, so I also put one of those fanny packs. Do they call them fanny packs? I just see them everywhere now. And they used to be like the sign of obnoxious older adult, just bad looking. I don't know. Now I see all the hip and cool cats wearing those things. I don't want a bum bag. I think fanny pack in England, when you say fanny, it doesn't necessarily mean bum like we had. So they call them bums, and you know, don't Google it, or Google it. It's a little silly. It doesn't mean the same thing. So here I am trying to. Here's the kicker about this. I kind of wanted it to be like a cutesy kind of girl, and if you know much about me, I don't really do the cutesy thing. So this is gonna be a stretch for me. I gotta go ahead and do some pretty hair, kind of that, you know, loose locks and whatnot. Actually, I figured this might be a fantastic time to try and, I don't know, have a little primer on how to do hair. Is it primer or primer? Alright guys, we're going to try this. And if you hear things, it's either my son or a gigantic fat cat who's sitting somewhere down there. So this is going to be like a little quick thing for those of you who are artists to learn maybe a little something about how to draw hair, because a common mistake is drawing every stinking little hair. So I've got this dude who has, I don't know, the hair that I sure wish I had. Check him out. Yeah. Okay. It's easy to fall into the trap of looking at this and saying, oh my gosh, I gotta draw all the things. But really, if you look at it, you ought to be thinking in clumps. All the clumps that we're gonna be focusing on are either S-shaped or C-shaped, or kind of in the opposite direction. So all of these kind of shapes here are found in and around this dude's head. So if I was, you know, to kind of like look around here, dude's got them all over the place. So I could, you know, reasonably figure out, if I wanted to redraw this guy, kind of where all of these bits are. And right now, it kind of looks like anime. If you think about anime, those of you who are total weebs out there like me, look at these bizarre hairstyles that they have, and they are kind of just simplified locks like this, but you're really just kind of using S's and C's. I'm kind of just using a regular cruddy Photoshop pen here to kind of illustrate a point, but whenever you have your S's and C's, they kind of tend to go to points either side. They always do. They tend to bunch up, and those are the places where you're going to try and put in the darker bits as the hair kind of dives in and around itself. So imagine if the hair kind of like did a swoop back thing, you know, and this was nicely pinched here. This kind of looks a little bit like a curl as it comes down. anywhere where my S's and C's converge, I'm going to want to go ahead and put a little bit of contour line in there. I'm not drawing every stinking hair. If I went undo, yeah, fascinating. Anyway, so this little stuff, it's one big shape. Just let it be one big shape. I got a little folder over here that I will unhide. This is, it's kind of a nice bit of bangs there. So if we analyze this, it is similar. We're not reinventing the wheel or anything. If we look, there are S's and C's. That's a big S. That's a big C. We can actually turn that one kind of into an S. And as long as we see her little part there is an S. And here's a big C. As long as we can separate out all of the locks, then we can just give little indications and you've got successful illusion of hair. This thing, by the way, is just so my hand moves around. It's very strange. Got another folder full of stuff here. That's a lot of messy hair, but we could totally figure that out as well. This is a little bit more of a challenge because if I were to do this, I would have to spend a lot of time with my S's and C's. Look at this big C here. Very anime looking. Oh my gosh, with the big bangs going crazy out there. There's a lot of volume out here, and as long as you have the outer bit and you start defining all the locks, it becomes pretty believable. To kind of make it look like the hair is going under other hair and over other hair. S's and C's, lots and lots and lots of them. So I could work on that forever. But then again, it's also difficult to stop. Going on like the challenge of finding different ones. No, that's just bad. And you should totally learn, those of you who are artists, how to properly do hair. Don't draw the individual hair strands. So then there's this like little cutesy pose. Once again, I don't do cutesy, but here goes nothing. Given kind of the high-waisted skirt right there. Kind of, it used to be that high-waisted stuff was kind of like what moms would wear, but now they're really cool. On the Totoro backpack, there are like keychain charms, because there's a bazillion of these things in the store. Kind of all toy-like and fun and silly. So I kind of put what looks to be a Jack Skellington head in there, because no Hot Topic would be complete without Jack Skellington plastered all over everything. There's also, I think, a Care Bear head. I think it's that. It started as a chipmunk. I made it into a Care Bear because that's just silly. Then this skirt was making me, I got to thinking about my daughter. She has this plaid skirt from Hufflepuff something, question mark. It's a Harry Potter thing for those of you who aren't hip and cool. Actually, I can't remember if it was that or Gryffindor, but it was a cool plaid skirt, so I'm going to roll with it. I want to make it that kind of same plaid, but I'm not going to make that little mark on there because that's just too much for this short of a video. 2 hours worth of this drawing was really enough. Here we are, starting to do a little bit more detail in the hair. S's and C's, people. Learning how to draw hair is all about S's and C's. There's the ears. I'm going to do very little structure on her face, no lines next to her eyes or nose, because girls want to be like washed out and beautiful, like in the super modelly way, right? And they think that any kind of line that isn't absolutely necessary kind of takes away from their beauty. And it's a huge lie. I think it's lacking in a little bit interesting character when we take all those lines out. But I'm going to roll with it here because it seemed entirely appropriate. I would rather see, some laugh lines, some interesting bits. I think Totoro was in the wrong place there, so I moved him over just a little bit. I didn't like how close he was and to the bum bag right there. But this is all just sharpening up all my lines. And sharpening is relative. Those of you who are artists, you probably recognize I pretty much just scribble None of my stuff is like super drafted out or anything. I kind of want to just see all the marks that are left. When I paint, like with traditional media, I don't want to blend everything away. I think, like the human face, I like to see all those little creases and crevices. I want to know somebody laughed by the lines in their face. Well, I want to know somebody was creative in their painting style by the thumbprint that they left on it, or the brush marks, the intentional little decisions, thousands of them. So here I just jumped right into color. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to do color theory this time around, but bonus points. Can you guys guess what color scheme I'm going with? It's a different color harmony than the other videos, and it's just a little bit more complex. But I wanted to kind of start with that, what is that, a fuchsia? It's kind of a purplish pink, but it really bounces off these other colors in a really bizarre way. I like that kind of tealish color. I cut out some of the decision making before I plopped that palette up there, because that's not really super interesting to this time around. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, the part of this video that's gonna be interesting is to see whether or not you've picked up on a huge mistake I've made. No, really. It's like embarrassing. You guys, I almost redid this entire video because of a mistake that I made. And then I thought, why? I mean, seriously, we're not fooling anybody when we turn these things out and try to make them as polished as possible. You gotta know we all make mistakes in weird ways. So I'm gonna clue you in at some point, and I feel silly, but I'm gonna clue you in on what this ridiculous mistake is. But you know, there's a lot of challenge to this, and it's always focusing on stuff. You know, I look at these platform shoes that I'm giving her. They kind of remind me of some of the London Underground stuff we used to wear. When I say we, I mean not me platform wise, but these kind of chunky black soles, and they give the height that sometimes girls want. And I just thought, I gotta try and pull off some of these trickier things. They're not in my visual library, like platform chunky shoes and plaid. I don't do a lot of plaid. And you know, the cutesy pose. Literally the first cutesy pose I think I've ever done. So basically, plaid is just overlapping stripes in different directions. They get kind of darker where they cross, but that's really all the trick is to them. I didn't go overly into detail on that, but the more I looked at it, because I do check reference, the more I realized, yeah, you just make thin paint and you run them over each other. Wherever they accumulate over the top of each other, makes those darker squares. And it's just that simple. Make sure you draw the lines in contour with the dress. And I'm sure this is like somebody's clan colors out there, tartan. But here we are. We are zooming in on the hair, doing a little bit more color variation in there, because I thought it should be a little outlandish and a little subculture, rather counterculture. I'm not entirely sure what the difference is, because it's been a while since I took sociology, and let's face it, I will never use it. Yep, there's the Care Bear. I went ahead and made it green. I think that's Lucky Bear. I really don't know anything about Care Bears. Not really. My little brother, I think, watched him some. He would totally get mad at me if he watched these videos. Or maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he's totally secure in the fact that he used to like Care Bears. Or maybe he doesn't remember. So yeah, this bangs. I saw a photo, because I look at reference, of some weird bangs that sometimes, those bangs are like in a curve over her eyes. I didn't just make that up, and it's just that's not the mistake. If you're looking for the mistake, it's not the fact that her bangs do that weird thing over her eyes. Yeah, that's coming. A little bit of sheen to the hair. Could you imagine how much work this would be to change your color in this many ways? It's kind of like the makeup thing. We want to embellish what's already awesome about ourselves. And, you know, it's fun. I'm not judgmental at all about that kind of thing. I wish I could have hair in those multiple hues, but I think it would be extra ridiculous on me. Now we're going to go ahead and put our background in. I do this kind of weird moppy background because I kind of like the way it feathers out like what's called a spot illustration. Grab a children's book, and those images that you see somewhere in there that aren't full bleed, they don't go all the way to the edges of the page, those are called spot illustrations. They're kind of just meant to hover and be self-contained, so you can put words around it and you don't have to just go hog wild all the way to the edges. I've gone ahead and drawn a grid in the back because this is actually paying a little homage to when I used to go to Hot Topic, back when it wasn't nearly as cool as it is today, just for t-shirts and music. So they had all these like t-shirts like folded up and stuck to the walls, and you could choose and be like, I want that one, it's like a skull, or that one's I think that was the Van Halen cover that I just scribbled on there, the Diver Down one, or 5150. Yeah, so I just wanted to color kind of in the background, give some texture, kind of set her apart, like she's shopping, like, hey, check out this Totoro bag I just bought. Adding a little color into the background, because I didn't want it to be too boring. So this is about, I mean, we're nearing the point where I start putting that little weird outline around things. Ooh, wait, blushies. Blushies, color in the cheeks, everybody's got it to some extent. Pushing, shadows and different tones into flat areas. Like her face was pretty much just one tone before, and it's kind of less than exciting. You know that faces aren't like that. Even though we're trying to minimalize all the quote imperfections in the face, there are still some little things you want to maintain, like color in the cheeks. Yeah. There's a little outline. Look at this little outline all the time. I don't know why it makes it I feel like it kind of makes it step off the background a little bit more in a completely non-traditional way. Oh boy, here we go. There's the mistake. Did you guys catch this already? Seriously, if you look at it, her big toe is on the right side of her leg, but her calf was on the other side. No, seriously. That was ridiculous. So you might have been thinking, oh, she looked like she was way too long a leg before, when really, no, her calf literally twisted backwards. So now I fixed that because, yeah, digital is bae. Bob, stop trying to be cool. Awkward trivia time. So there are ways for artists to tell if something is in proportion. So the ideal individual's proportions are generally considered 8 heads tall. So if you took my head and stacked it on 8 other heads that are approximately the same size as mine, not only would you have something gruesome, but you would also have the ideal height for someone with the size head of mine. You guys, it's a ton of work, but insane how fun this is to kind of put together. I'm just stoked about, like, what am I going to do next week? I have a couple ideas, but I sure would love to hear from some of you. Or maybe it's time to switch things up. I've got some interesting ideas involving zombies and Disney princesses. Haha! Now we've reached that moment in the video where I ask you to like it. Go ahead and find the little thumb down there that's pointing in the upper direction and hit it. And if you really like this and you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and tell all your friends to do so. Also, look somewhere on this page and you'll see a little bell. Super important if you want to know when a new video drops. Also, don't forget to share this thing. Share it with people who might find this information interesting. Maybe they want to learn how to draw hair. Maybe they just want to watch me scribble for a while. And lastly, create. Create something, especially if it's a better day for someone else.